Hello and good morning and welcome. Yes, we're actually on the air. I know it's been about a month, and every week we say we're going to be here, and something happens and we don't. But I can't say the sun is shining, but at least it's not raining in Staffordshire. So let's find out what it's like in that beautiful Isle of Bute with my friend and colleague, David Parry. Good morning, David.
Morning, Ellen. Well, it's a grey day. What's a grey day to sound a bit like Larry Grayson?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Grey but nice. I mean, it's very chilly up here. We nowadays we always go through that sort of mid-autumn chill, and it's decided to arrive early in the
Yes.
Hebrides, but chilly, but sort of crisp and pleasant. We're hunkered down in our front room and reading with lots of hot coffee, so we're okay.
That's
A
good. That's
fine
good.
Sunday, a fine Sunday.
That's what you want. That's what you
That's
need.
what you want.
So, yeah. Mind you, I mean, things that have been happening in the world. I've put the title as you and I delving into life and the afterlife. But I mean, there's plenty in life going on at the moment, and this awful thing with Hurricane Milton. At least it isn't quite as bad as I was anticipating. But even so, there's still quite a few people have lost their lives and thousands have lost their homes. And it, it it makes America seems to be prone. Certain parts of America seem to be prone to this type of thing every year in one form or another. David, um, I mean, I've been to Florida. It's absolutely a beautiful state. But they certainly have some devastating weather from time to time, don't they?
Oh, I mean, sadly, my prayers and my love go out to all of them. And I suppose on a practical level, it never ceases to amaze me how a country as advanced as America is never ever prepared. It's,
Yes,
where
yeah,
is all this money going exactly? Because it's going somewhere. It doesn't
yeah,
disappear. So,
that's
I
true.
think they need to ask themselves a few very hard questions and
Yes,
maybe invest in poor people a bit more than in the rich. I don't think the rich really need it. They've got enough already, but poor people need a helping hand. And of course, it's the poor people that get hit by these things. So, yeah, it's a bit of a time all round at the minute.
it certainly is. And then, of course, you've got the devastation that's going on over in the area with Israel, Gaza, Lebanon, Iran. It's a very and then of course you've got Russia and Ukraine. I mean, the world is in a very worrying situation at the moment.
There's some of those things I don't want to talk about because I'm refusing to take sides. I'm
That's
a
fair point.
lifelong
Yes,
pacifist. As I say, I'm a lifelong pacifist. I can't see how further murders, and that's what we're doing. All war is a
yes,
sanctioned murder. I can never
yes,
see how, that we're in the midst of tragedy now, and no one will ever convince me a further murder will solve anything. It won't. What worries me at the moment is, in terms of the Middle East, how certain groups are now firing on UN peacekeepers. I mean, that really must stop immediately. Um, and it's the people you don't expect that will do it that are doing it. They're doing it. I mean, that is
yes,
unbelievable. In terms of Russia and Ukraine, I mean, I've got friends in Russia and Ukraine.
yes,
So the whole thing's tragic, but nobody really is trying to see reason because too many people are making money, and unless we start addressing that as an issue, our society really will turn into something similar like 1984. I mean, I and my better half are watching the wonderful old black and white version with Peter Cushing at the moment, and it's
oh
so
yes,
close to what's happening around us now. It's absolutely frightening. I mean, what the West doesn't like is that power is shifting eastward, And I think the powers that be will do nearly anything to stop power shifting eastward. But is this really what we all want? I mean, do we really want lives that are so terrible? I don't know what you think, Alan. We're having
Yeah, I
trouble
agree. Sorry,
locating the show online. We're having trouble locating the show online.
I don't know why, but
Right,
it's live streaming at the moment. Um,
right,
no, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
right.
I
Well,
don't
as I
understand.
say, we keep going. We keep going.
Well, I mean, at the end, the show is put on YouTube, so if anybody does have
Yeah.
problems,
We're pros. We're all troopers, Alan. We keep going anyway.
people people can listen to it later, can't they?
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
oh dear. So you mentioned the film you was watching. What film's that?
Well, it was the old BBC
With
TV
Peter
series,
Cushing.
1984, with Peter Cushing. People tend to forget he was much older
I
than
never
Chris
watched
Lee.
that.
Oh, it's very hard going. I mean, I was skeptical he'd be a very good Winston. I mean, that's the victim, the anti-hero
Yes. Yeah.
in the story. I was very convinced he's absolutely perfect. I mean, Peter Cushing was a very fine actor. Weirdly, looking back, they all were. Just because they
Yeah.
made their mark in a particular genre, in one way, is neither here nor there. They were very good actors. And Peter
Yes.
in this nightmare. I mean, it sort of brings it out further. I think that it's all in black and white, and
Yes, it did.
they narrate the story as far as it's possible to narrate things like that as you go along. So it's very easy to follow, but deeply, deeply depressing. You there, Alan?
Yeah. Right. The connection went down. It's come back up again.
Right.
Um, so can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Alan.
I, yeah. Anybody who is listening, I have to I have to explain that where I live, where I broadcast from, we're only about a mile from a main town. Yet we're in a different county, and it's a village, and they won't put in full fibre in this village. So all of us who live down this lane, we have the same problem. It doesn't matter who our provider is, we have the same problem. So my apologies when if it does go down and up, but it it's not great fun, David. It's not great fun.
That's
So
showbiz, Alan Cox. We just keep going.
going, dear, yeah. Well, I feel at the moment that there's a big cosmic shift, spiritual shift going on. That is, I feel this uncertainty that the world is in at the moment will come through it, and I feel there's a lot of lessons spiritually as well as physically to be learned from this period, and it's all like a big shake up for people to start to realise what the true values of life really are. David, I don't know if you would agree with that.
Oh gosh, 10 years ago I would have done. I think you're right. We'll all get through it. I think you're right about that. I'm beginning to wonder if people ever learn anything. It's all in front of them now in black and white. I think it's sinister. They don't want history taught in schools anymore. There's something in the 1984 thing that it didn't come across with full force. I mean, I read the book many years ago, and it's depressing. But by no stretch of the imagination is it a laugh.
Yeah,
But it came across with even more force when I'm watching Peter Cushing changing history. I mean, what the party does, this all-powerful party in their world, is they've managed to erase history. So there is nothing to learn from, and that means they can change the truth as it suits them in front of people. because no one will question anything. If you question something, you're immediately a traitor. But
Right.
that's not as much. Like, that's not as bad as the fact. You're really aware it doesn't matter because there's nothing to compare it to. They've managed to erase the past. Therefore, there's no comparison. I mean, that's nearly what's going on now.
Yeah.
Is British history this wonderful civilized story of us spreading light and enlightenment everywhere? No, it's not. It's a bloodbath. But the point is, we need to know that. And we need to know where things went wrong more than just putting our heads up our asses and pretending it didn't happen. So, it worries me immensely. Kids are lazy anyway. Why do we have to give in to what kids want? When I went to school, you were told to get on with it, and it was better that way. Was it a barrel of laughs? No, but it was better. And now they, whining and whinging. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. They're tough, but of course they don't. And now history is disappearing from the curriculum. And you think that's very, very dangerous because it's our story, and it gives way to fantasy. I mean, the level of fantasy on social media replacing what is actual, real, documented history is nearly staggering and deeply disturbing. I don't know if you've seen any of that, Alan.
I haven't actually, and even though I've got grandchildren in school, I was not aware that our education system was doing that to our pupils. I didn't realise. I mean, that really is worrying. Um, it's to think that youngsters are not got. I mean, I suppose the same in any country with the education. Um, they always make out that the country, whichever it is, i.e., Britain, are the goodies, and it's the rest of the baddies, and it's always tainted with, like the Great Crusades, going across Europe and across the world, creating this marvelous Commonwealth. Um, but basically, all we were was a load of murderers going over there and stripping all the wealth out of all these other countries. But when I was at school, it was like, well, the bravery and doing good for the world and everything. There's always a tainting of what history is. But when you get to a point where there's no history being taught, that is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous. Um, but I mean, thank goodness for books, for historians. Um, I mean, that would be the next terrible thing if all books were banned, because there are parts of the world where that does happen, or they've tried to make it happen. If people didn't write books, and I mean, the greatest book of all, obviously, is the Bible, but historians down the centuries have tried to give an undertaking to show what was going on in different parts of the world. I don't know if you agree with that, David.
I think you're right. Not teaching history, I go further. Not teaching history is bloody dangerous, not just
Yeah.
worse. Because there's no, as I was saying a minute ago, there's no point of comparison. Yeah, I mean, everything in our day was whitewashed, but at least it was somewhere to start. If you've got nowhere to start, things simply don't make sense, and all you're thinking of is the present moment. But that gives you no sense of orientation. There's nothing to hold on to. That you know, some parts of the world don't have books because of poverty. I mean, certainly my friends in Africa tell me what school life is out there. People are desperate to get hold of books because they simply can't afford them. They're not there.
Mm.
Textbooks, ordinary textbooks, which here kids throw away. I think kids need a bit of discipline, personally, over here. Why are we
Yes.
running around them? We're not serving them by not preparing them for life. I can't understand that at all. Have everything I can possibly afford, little Johnny. How is
Yes.
that? How is that preparing anyone for life? They will grow up. They won't be that age forever. They will be unprepared and they will be resentful. The end. What do people expect? But there are some parts of the world where books are plentiful, like China, and they appear to be already in the 22nd century, which is what people in America don't like. I mean, I was watching the other day the Tesla thing. Tesla and Elon Musk have unveiled this series of home robots, humanoid robots
Oh,
called
yes.
Optimus. And I was sat there thinking, my God, you need to look at what's happening in China. That's backward already. I mean, but it's happening in America, so it must be the best news ever. No, no, have a look at what they're coming out of China at the minute, and you will be horrified at how backward we are.
I
All
tell you what,
this.
just sorry.
After you, Alan.
Now, say what does worry me is that they were showing on the news that they've developed a car that hasn't got a steering wheel, doesn't need a driver. You can do your work on your computer as the car takes you to where you want to go. And I thought to myself, my goodness, you know, what happens if the internet breaks down? Total chaos. You can just
Well,
see, you could just all crashing into one another. Oh goodness, man.
in other words, like an ordinary day, since most people can't drive. Um,
True.
no, I mean, what strikes me about that is, so they want you working even before you get to work. Like, is there
Yes,
no mercy at all?
that's right. You've got an unhappy dog there in the background
Yeah,
somewhere.
sadly, our road, it seems to be we moved away from London to get away from things like that. Not that we don't love doggies, we love doggies, but there seems to be some obsession with our part of the island this morning. I don't know why. It started last night, and I
Oh
wish all
right.
the mainlanders would just sod off, to be honest.
Mind you, coming now we're into like the autumn stage of the year cycle. There's going to be less visitors, I would have thought, isn't there?
Oh, thank God. They come here, they behave badly. I mean, it's bad enough here. God knows what happens in places like Benidorm. I had to get it in. Um, and
Yeah.
you know the modern attitude of people amazes me. I will go there and do whatever I want. Well, please come again. You know, and this, even on our little island, they seem to believe that just because they've got a ferry across here, they can behave as badly as they want. It's actually quite an eye opener.
Crazy. Oh well, I mean, talking about Benidorm, the Spanish don't particularly want the Brits there anymore, do they?
Alan, I wonder why. I wonder why. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's something about Britons nowadays. It's this sort of gym drunk culture. I can throw my weight around. I can do whatever I want. That's called just being a savage. That's not being an adult.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, it's all something to do. Who do I blame? The ineffectual churches, the schools that will do nothing now, and parents.
Uh,
Have you served your family by not preparing your children for life? No, you haven't. I'm the most generous father and mother in the world. Big deal. Will they care about that in 10 years' time when they don't know how to deal with the situations being thrown at them? I mean, this country really needs to get a grip, but I'm not sure it's going to anytime soon.
I'll tell you what the real worrying part about it is that it seems to be almost a daily occurrence on our news channels or whatever, where younger and younger children, 'cause that's all they are carrying knives and you hear about like 12 and 13-year-olds murdering a 19-year-old up here in Wolverhampton, and then there's another one in court now, I think, for stabbing. I think he's a 13-year-old stabbing a 16-year-old, and you think to yourself, you know, what what's our society coming to, where children are actually frightened to walk to school or walk back home from school because they don't know whether they're going to be attacked. Um, it's a real sad indictment of our society, David.
Oh, and I mean, it was something John Burnwell told me years ago, that something had happened in the worlds that are sort of just above this one. The anthroposophists believe that some sort of apocalyptic battle may be the battle in the Book of Revelation, because they don't seem clear about it. It's taken place finally, and all the negative spirits, the dark energies have been thrown down here. I can sort of go along with that one.
Yeah,
That would make sense. But in other words, it's our duty, it's our job now to try and make sense of it all, not just throw ourselves in the deep end to go along with it. Or, I'm the biggest warrior on the block. I'm going to naive kid stuff. I'm going to do what I want to do in this mayhem. Well, no. What is the best thing to do, not just what you want to do. To be
it's
honest, that problem's been happening for years. I mean, no one's been talking about it, and it's only because it's incredibly difficult to hide nowadays that's actually coming out. I mean, in my days, I heard about that when I was teaching in the language schools, because you'd get worried parents from different parts of the world talk, because I always did adults. I never did kids. I always thought adults were more interesting to teach. Um,
yeah,
because you have a conversation. I can't, teaching kids never
yeah,
interested me. And they couldn't believe the nature of British schools for a start, because they'd always say they're learning nothing. And you heard that there's a point system. You get so many points for the type of weapon, the type of tool, I believe, that you take into a conflict. They're arranged on the internet. They're arranged in social media. You turn up, you get a tool, and you get different scores for where you hit someone or stab someone. And all that's been going on for years, and absolutely nobody's wanted to talk about it. Politicians don't want to talk about it. They're fully aware. And local councils don't want to talk about it because it might involve money. As I say, as a society, we've got to start growing up. And is
yeah.
it all about flattering the rich and keeping them in their positions? Quite frankly, no. I don't care whether Charles is king. I don't. Is he doing a good job? No. I don't care that everyone in Parliament is a millionaire, which they are now. But I do care when they're not doing their jobs. What do you think, Alan?
No, I agree. It's funny what you said there about John Barnwell saying that. I remember going back to the turn of the century. I haven't seen Michael Smith, who's a clairvoyant. I haven't seen him for a long, long time. But we used to have some deep conversations, and he said that in the turn of the century that God in his wisdom. Now I'm only repeating what he said. And to me, it makes some kind of sense. Is that the world has got to be purified, so there's got to be a big battle. So he removed all the demons from their hiding places and sent them down to earth for there to be the final battle for the good to defeat the evil. Now, I suppose you could say whether that's exactly true or not. It certainly seems like there's plenty of demons around, doesn't it?
Well, I think there's a common thread in all this, isn't there?
Yeah.
That something dark has happened. My worry with that, I mean, the Jehovah's Witnesses, believe it or not, I'm assuming you mean the turn of the last century, not the turn of this one. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
I mean, they were saying, God, what was it? In 1914, the evil spirit and his minions were thrown down to the earth. They were saying that before the outbreak of World War One, which is interesting. And of course, I mean, people tend to forget how truly terrible that actually was. I mean, the World War Two
Yes.
pales into insignificance in certain ways compared to World War One.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, there's a thread there. So whether that's actual or not, in one sense, doesn't matter as much as the fact certain people are aware something is going on, something has taken a darker route and a darker turn. And yes, we do need to be aware of it. You know, how do we rally to this situation? What part do we play ourselves? Excuse me, ourselves. What do you think, Evan?
No, I agree there, because it's in a human being's own hands to alter the way that society all over the world is. And as a collective human beings, we don't seem to be making a very good job of it, do we? Really, if you think about it. Um, and I've noticed with the media, they just focus on one aspect of what's going on at the time, and it's almost like, oh, we can forget about that. No, it's only this is important at the moment. How often do they talk about the conflicts that's going over on in the Far East, countries, like of Pakistan and that kind of area of the world, or the skirmishes that are going on in Central America and Africa. None of that ever really. It's our headlines, because it's almost like it's not important. Um, we're very selective in what tell people what's going on.
Well, I think there are two
I don't know
responses
if you
to
find that.
that. Yeah, as far as I can see it, I mean, there's ratings. I mean, people mustn't forget that news agencies are dominated by ratings. I mean, there was that movie years back, I can't remember what it was called, where the TV broadcaster has a breakdown, and the powers that be decide that serves their purposes very, very well, and they use him to get their messages across. Like a very famous movie. Um, ratings, that dominate the social media, that dominate our news agencies. But what disturbs me is it's getting much more clearly ideological than it used to be, where we're always right and everybody else is always wrong. That seems to be creeping into the system in a way it didn't in the past. Now, either they've decided that helps ratings, and or various agencies are saying, well, no, we want you to do that, or else. We live in a world of dirty tricks at the minute. And really, really, we've got to start, as I say, it's all about taking responsibility, and most people simply don't want to do that. And until that happens, not much is going to change for the better. What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, it brought to me. I'm sure I mentioned this to you before on air. It's been a long time ago, but as you was talking, I was listening to you, obviously. But old Mother Shipton come into my mind. So as I'm talking to you, I've just gone onto the internet, because old Mother Shipton, her other name was Ursula Seville, and she was born in 1488 in Knaresborough in North Yorkshire, and she lived at the age of either 72 or 73. And she was like what they would call today a clairvoyant, but I call them soothsayers. And prophecies have all come true to now, quite amazingly. She predicted the Boer War, the Great War, the Second World War, um, every major conflict that's gone on in the Western world. And the worrying part is that she said that the 46th president of the United States would cause the end of the world. Well, Joe Biden's the 46th president of the United States, and there's certainly enough going on at the moment. Um, I just find quite fascinating, and I've been to Knaresborough, and there's a cave there on the side of the river, and it's got a blue plaque there, and it tells you she lived in this cave. And going back like in the 15th century and then into the 16th century, for somebody to live into their 70s I think was quite amazing, really, because I think that most people died when they was about 40 or 45 or something. So there was, but I just find it absolutely fascinating that somebody, all those centuries ago could actually link in and predict what was to come, and it actually happens. I think that's just. But you could argue, have we already reached the end of the world as we know it? It doesn't necessarily mean that the world is going to be blown up and won't exist anymore, but um, technology, as you was on about before with Tesla, and the Chinese, has got to a frightening state where artificial intelligence now can replicate a person, and unless you know what signs to look out for, you can actually think it's that person who's talking to you on a video. I think that's scary, David. I think that's scary.
Witchcraft apart, you can't help feeling the AI boys will make a better job of it than we are. Yeah,
Yeah,
is it scary? Yes, but my God, if people will not take responsibility, good is what I'm going to say to that. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I agree 100%, joking apart, but it doesn't necessarily
yeah,
mean the end of the world. It can mean a major change.
yes,
And certainly, I think we're on the verge of something like that. It just amazes me that all the way up to the top, the great families, and let's face it, it's great families that still rule the world. It's not democratic institutions. I mean, even with the corporations, if you start breaking it down, it's the big families from the past that own them still. If they simply will not change, if they're willing to see the world destroyed, provided they're still in power, then let the AI boys come along and remove them. Because either people are drunk in Benidorm pretending there's no problem at all, or they're just blithely going about their lives. What amazes me is that they don't care for the future. I mean, don't you have children and grandchildren? What sort of world do you want them to live in, grow up in? Are you so utterly irresponsible? The answer is yes to most parents nowadays, that they just simply can't imagine doing anything. Not even defending local education. So I think a great change is
yeah.
coming regardless. I just hope it's going to be a bit more human than maybe it's going to turn out to be, because at the moment things are not looking positive for human beings. What do you think, Alan?
I agree, and I was. It's strange, we talk about life and the afterlife, but in a way, um, spirit does affect. Even if people don't realize it, their everyday life, and sometimes I do believe that there's big lessons to be learned, and you just look at our political system. Um, I mean, you could argue that compared with a lot of other countries in the world, we've got, shall we say, an acceptable system. But then you look at it another way and you say that at the moment it's just a total shambles. And people basically they follow like sheep. And what I found quite uh, amusing, I suppose, in a way, is that Labour have had a landslide victory, but they did that with only 36% of the votes. And lots of people who were voted for them are now saying, I wish I never voted for them. uh, they didn't so much vote for Labour to get in, they voted because they've had enough of the hypocrisy from the Conservatives. and and then you think to yourself, well, if people could start to actually think properly, think deeper to about what they really wanted. You've got a country like Italy. Um, they've always got um, a government that is a shared government, because their system very rarely ever throws up a leading party that can govern by itself. And in some ways, I think that's probably a better thing, because then not one ideology takes over. There has to be some kind of compromise along the way. But in this country, it's all or nothing. I don't know if you agree with that.
Oh, you nearly said idolatry. I agree with that as well. Um, yeah, I mean, for once we're on the same hymn sheet with this, Alan. I've always been into proportional representation. I can't see this schoolyard mentality. It's too British by half. My gang can beat your gang. It's childish. And what do people expect?
Yeah.
If you've got a kids outlook, you get kids results. Labour
Yes.
didn't let me down. It's taken quite. It's been far shorter than I thought, but they didn't let me down. The sleaze, the corruption, they didn't let me down. But yeah, I mean, look at it wasn't a landslide. People voted against the Tories. They voted against Boris Johnson. That liar can just shut up and stop trying to work his way back into public attention. The disaster of Liz Truss. I mean, that's what people were voting against. To find that the other
Yes.
side, so called, is equally as bad. Yeah, what a surprise! It's because remember, I'm on neither side. I hope people realise that I'm on the side of maturity, which means we need
Yes.
a better system where people have to talk together whether they like it or not. And that man, that liar and hypocrite, I didn't think he was a hypocrite, but our current prime minister is a total hypocrite. The fact he will argue with people on TV to show he is still in the right when the facts are staring him out is absolutely staggering. But it doesn't surprise me since they're all as bad as each other. They don't think there's a world outside of Parliament, and they're all millionaires, so they don't really care. What do you think, Alan?
I mean, yeah, I mean, accepts, what is it, £100,000 worth of gifts. But everything's all right now because he's given £6,000 of it back. I find it's, yes, he's had some new suits, and I was one of the other conservative, one of the women, I can't remember who it is now. She had an holiday paid for living in a millionaire's flat in New York, but she paid for her own airfare across there. And I don't know, it's whether some of these people start off right intentions and they really believe they've gone into politics to help people, but then there's a big proportion of them later on realise they can feather their own nests, and looking out for people seems to be not even secondary, third or fourthly down the line. It staggers belief, really, David.
Well, I've stopped believing, to be honest, that I've stopped giving them the benefit of the doubt, Alan. There might be one or two, but I think most of them go into politics to feather their own nest from the beginning. And they're fully aware that the sheeple are down the pub or in Benidorm, and they can do whatever they want. They can ride roughshod over us, and no one's right. So there'd be a row, but who cares? You've got all this money in the bank.
Yes.
And the minute you're out of Parliament, you go to a fat job as an advisor somewhere. I mean, all this must stop. It's not going to stop anytime soon, but all this must stop if sanity is going to be restored. But at the moment, there's no sign of it. And also, there are new wolves, there are new pigs getting close to the trough, like Reform. I don't believe a word of them either. I mean, Nigel Farage, what a very mixed blessing that man is. I mean, he was a big wheel in business. People forget that because he's playing it down. He was a big businessman before he became this public pain in the arse. And, all these, I mean, it seems to be a party of racists and homophobes. So I don't think there's anything particularly to look forward to, but I notice they're gaining strength. And at the moment, I'm making jokes,
Yes.
As we watch for our saying, yes, Prime Minister, because, the other two had better look out because there is a new wolf on the block.
Absolutely love that. Yes, Prime Minister. What was it? Yes, Minister. Paul Eddington. He was absolutely brilliant, and they got it down to a T. And the way the minister or the prime minister can be manipulated as well, because everybody thinks that the power actually lies with the prime minister, and I suppose it does to a degree. But I think the real power is behind the scenes, because the ones who are um, in not the ones that are not the MPs, but the ones who are actually running the government behind the scenes, from party to party when different parties get in power. It's the same people. They don't actually. They don't all go. It isn't like when a football manager gets the sack and his team disappear with him. It's like, well, okay, you got new MPs and a new prime minister, but the background boys are exactly the same people. It's I think it's an eye opener, David.
Yeah, I don't want to whitewash MPs. I mean, they've got more clout. I mean, at the end of the day, the civil service have to do what they want, and the civil service can disagree, but the civil service have at least to go along the route of a minister of a department. Yes, the civil service stays the same, and I don't go
Yeah,
along with this shadow government conspiracy malarkey, this hidden power. Right, who? Because no one can ever say who. But there's no need to, again, fantasy. There's no need for it. The civil service remains the same because they're career people, and they're normally from the upper classes. If they're in very superior positions, that came out in Yes Minister, I noticed. And
yes,
the sovereign and the aristocracy, the House of Lords and the sovereign really have an incredible power to stop what they don't want, and to stifle certain types of argument. I've noticed. So has anything changed for the better? Not really. Um, and things go on. But I'm not going to whitewash the members of parliament. They're just in. I mean, my trouble with that series, which was brilliant, is that they came across as victims. Well, not really. You people are ruthless career politicians if you can manage to be that, mostly, and there are one or two exceptions. And you're in it for the money. So don't you're using the system to line your pockets, benefit on what you knew the system was in the first place, and it suits you fine. But what about the rest of us? And you're meant to be representing the rest of us. What about people, the ordinary people? I've felt for years that Westminster wasn't fit for purpose, and I don't care if it's a palace. Let's burn it down now. And try and get some sensible politicians. Am I the only person in the country that still thinks we need to be represented by half decent people? Because it's beginning to sound like it is. What do you think, Alan?
no, I totally agree there, and because the reason why the political system over here will never be like it is, so for argument's sake, I mentioned Italy, is because there is too much money involved, and there's too much wanting power, to have the ultimate power, and that's why you'll never get a vote in Parliament to say yes, we'll have proportional representation. It's just not going to happen, is it?
Do you
Uh,
remember Starmer supported that? Was it 5 years ago? Proportional
that's right.
representation.
Yes,
I mean
I do.
that's why. I mean, he's just an absolute hypocrite. As I say, they didn't let me down. I thought it would take about a year and a half. I wasn't expecting everything to blow up in their faces the minute they got power.
No, they're, they're, I really don't know what the next 4 and 3/4 years has got in store for us. It's watch this space, I think, isn't it?
Well,
But,
liberty for Scotland. That's what I
but
say.
hi, are you going to put the Adrian's wall back up?
Definitely, with barbed wire this time.
Oh, dear me. I'll have to dig a tunnel so I can get get on this,
Oh yeah, we
get to
smuggle in
visit
our
you.
mates. Don't worry, Alan. We're smuggling our mates.
Oh dear me! You see, that's another thing. Even a small island like we are, uh, you can't even have harmony there between uh, uh, four countries, can you? England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland.
Uh,
You can't even have harmony there.
yeah, but when I was living in England, I was perfectly aware that other parts of the country were being drained dry. Why won't the English get
Yeah,
harmony with Scotland, Wales, and Ireland? Because they're stealing all their resources, and
yeah,
it's not a fair exchange. And oh my God! But what's the problem? You know what the problem is? You know, in certain ways, Scotland does well out of the exchange at the moment. But the point is, there's not equality in power. If Westminster wants to override the Scottish government, it can do it at the drop of a hat. And the exchange of monies and resources over the centuries has been largely one way. And then English people tend to think, well, what's the problem? Well, I mean, do they really need it explained to them? Are you still there,
yes,
Helen?
I agree. Totally agree with you. Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
No.
Yeah. No, I do agree. It's. I do wonder. I, I know this is a question that can't be answered, but I do wonder if there is the Almighty looking down on this planet that has been created and think, what on earth are them lot up to down there? I've given them. Hello. It seems like David has disappeared, and I don't know where he's gone to. Wait a minute, I think he's coming back. Yeah. I'm trying to get him back on. Hello, David. You disappeared.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing.
No,
Right.
you just went.
All
You
right.
just went
Right.
complete.
Okay.
You went completely off the screen, David. I
Yeah.
don't know what.
Very odd. Very odd. Because we're not seeing anything to do with the supernatural. So very odd.
It is. It is. Look, I do wonder whether my computer is possessed. I do wonder. I do wonder that because he certainly knows how to play me up. Oh dear me. Yeah. Now I don't know whether you heard me. What I said was, um, the Almighty looking down at this planet that is created and thinks, given us all free will, he looks down and thinks, what on earth are them lot up to down there? Because I don't know whether he's actually had this in mind for the planet to be as it is. I really don't know, but I think we're making collectively making a good job of destroying it anyway.
Well, I'm a firm believer in karma. Um, I think the good thing about old Catholics, I mean, people divide in old Catholicism. You're either on the traditional side of it, like Montague Summers or Bishop Sean Manchester, who both hold some terrifying points of view, or you're on the liberal side of it, like us, in which case you're open to
Yeah.
comparative religion, mysticism, and so on. On the liberal side of it all, I need to confess I do think there's a lot to the idea of karma. And people, what's the biblical way of putting that? They reap what they sow. What
Yes.
amazes
Yeah.
me is that, I mean, this generation at the moment, they want life without consequences, but that is part of life. And the whole idea of karma really is you reap what you sow. There are consequences to your actions, and people simply don't like that. Well, grow up. There's one curse on humanity, and that's the willful refusal to bloody grow up in this country. Maybe not humanity generally. I'll take that back a bit, but certainly in this country at the moment, well, people want to be teenagers forever. Why was it really so great then? If it wasn't so great then, why will it be great now? It's just astonishing. I'll say what I want,
Yes.
I'll do what I want, and then they're amazed that things don't get better. Karma, as I say, what the wrongs we did in the past will eventually surface, no matter what they are, and they will have to be dealt with whether we like it or not. And then we have a choice of, as a people, of dealing with that therapeutically, of dealing with that in a healing way, of dealing with that in a spiritual way, or putting our heads up our posteriors and pretending there's nothing to do. And sadly, it's the latter that we're doing at the moment. What do you think, Evan?
No, I agree with you. Oh, you asked me right back at the beginning, and couldn't find where the show was being broadcast, and I realised what's happened now. Is amazingly, I go on my phone and I'm connected to Facebook, but I tried to connect to Facebook on StreamYard, and it flashed up a Facebook have blocked me. Strange blocking, because I can get my Facebook account on my mobile, so it's only going to be heard on podcast on YouTube. This is David. So
Well, no, that's
Facebook are playing tricks on me, I think. So
Facebook needs.
it's
If ever
doing me
there was
the
a dubious, if ever there was a dubious blessing, it's Facebook.
yeah. Just take me almost an hour to realise what was going on. Absolutely crazy. I don't know. So how can it block me on there? Yet as I look at my phone and I find my Facebook and I go on it, it's there. So crazy. Oh well. Anyway, uh, our hour is virtually up again, David. We haven't been on for quite a while, but we certainly find things to talk about, don't we?
Oh, it's always good having a Sunday chinwag.
It is indeed. Well, God willing, hopefully we can both be all right to be here again next week. That'd be
Definitely,
good.
definitely. Yeah.
Uh, Before we go, if anybody wants to know more about you, there's the best way they can
Sadly,
contact you
through
or
the
find out
curse.
about you.
Thank you, Helen. Sadly, through the curse of social media, I'm on most of the platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. You can get me that way. I've got a website which I know needs massively updating. But I'm about if people really want to get hold of me, and I don't bite, and I will answer.
Right. And if anybody hasn't had enough of me, you can get me again on social media. My website, understandingspirit.com. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, please do. The contact numbers and email addresses, everything are on there. And anyway, I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Sunday. And I hope they all have a really good week. And believe it or not, the sun has come out here. It's beautiful, cold but beautiful. So what it is, I managed to find a few 50p pieces and put them in the meter, and it's brought the sunshine out, David.
I knew you weren't finished with the weather today.
Anyway, God bless everybody, and talk to you soon. So bye for now.